joining us this evening. Pasensya na if this is quite an unplanned live stream for this evening, but because of insistent public demand, pauunlakan ko ang mga gustong mag-live this evening because I think there's a lot of you who are very much interested with not just learning but understanding the Miss Supranational and the Mr. Supranational prototypes and based on the results of this year's competition in Poland. Pag-uusapan natin yung key points on what makes a Supranational winner. So before we begin, thank you very much dun sa mga nandito na, sa mga joining us sa ating live stream. This is actually our second live stream within a span of 24 hours. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. Please do hit the like button so that the algorithm would promote and expand yung reach ng ating live stream this evening. And for those who are joining us na bagong salta, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell so that so that you're updated with kaganapans here on our space in YouTube. Okay, so let's sige, umpisa na muna natin with some of your comments. Mark Gonzalez is here. Hello, good evening. Sabi niya, good evening, Sir Jason. I'm happy with Spain's win. He, along with Brazil and Poland, were my choices to win. Same sentiments, Mark Gonzalez. I also have those three as possible winners, although I am partial towards Brazil and partial with Brazil, Canada, Poland, and Thailand, Netherlands as possible winners. Spain is within the realm of possibility in my list. Ashden is here. Kumakaway siya. Hello, good evening, Ashden. Ping is also here. Magandang gabi po, Sir Jason. Magandang gabi din sa iyo, Ping. I hope tawag nito na hindi masyado abala sa inyo itong live stream na ito. Theodore Angelo Salazar is here. He says, "Hi, Sir Jason. Good evening po. Good evening, Theodore. This is the first time na nakasalamuha kita on our live stream, so I hope you enjoy our episode for this evening." Travel Junkie is also here. Hajiev says good evening, everyone. So EJ Belge, sabi niya, naimbag nga bigat mo, Jason. Hello from Surrey, British Columbia in Canada. Naragsak nga rabiik sa inyo dyan sa Canada. And it's because it's evening here in the Philippines, of course. AJ Baay is also here. Good evening, Sir Jason. Finally, not a team replay ako. This is actually nakakapanibago because AJ, this is the first time that we're doing a Sunday na live stream after 4 months, 3 months, or more or less that long. Because naging nakaugalian na natin na it's always Saturday that we do our live stream. So medyo kakaiba lang yung pakiramdam. AF Chicago is also here. Good morning, sabi niya, from Chicago. Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, is called the Windy City. Am I right? Travel Junkie, sabi niya, present po. Now in Manila for vacation. Nakikibalita at wait sa tsaa. Hindi ko natapos yung ginagawa kong tsaa, Travel Junkie. So I am probably gonna publish it somewhere within this coming week. At pag-uusapan natin yung mga nasagap kong chismis prior to the Mr. and Miss Suprana Finals. That might explain yung yung results na nakuha natin. So later I will be publishing this, I promise. Medyo tambak lang kasi it's submission of grades this week. Nasaan na ba tayo? Belladonna, sabi niya, present. Hello, good evening, Belladonna. Hajiev says, bet ko si Brazil. At sentimental favorite niya si Malaysia, si Daniel Hansen. Um, I actually like Daniel because if I'm not mistaken, he was a former Mr. Tourism World winner several years back. I cannot pinpoint which year, maybe around 2018 or 19, somewhere within that vicinity. And he also represented Malaysia back then. Tingin ko, one of the things na nakasagabal kay Daniel moving forward into the competition is yung kanyang height. Because in terms of yung face, in terms of yung kanyang physique, wala tayong problema. I think he's one of the more, interesting candidates facially and one of the more physically fit na candidates in Mr. Supranational this year. AJ Bai says, my favorite talaga, Sir Jess, are Miss Cuba, Miss Canada, and for the male counterparts, Mr. Malaysia and Mr. Poland. I agree with Mr. Poland because he really looks like a model for brands like Dolce and Gabbana, D Squared, and those denim brands, Italian denim brands na premium denim, yung kanilang nilalakong mga jeans. So, yeah, I kind of get that. Empress Teen is here. Hello po. Prototypes ng Supranational. Yes, we will be talking about that in a bit. Tapos lang natin itong mga comments, mga pag-greetings and pa-hi hello ng mga kasamahan natin dito sa Sashes&Scripts. EJ Belge says, I thought Netherlands will win, followed by Spain and Brazil. Sayang, but still happy for España. Yeah, I kind of agree with Netherlands. He was someone na na wala sa radar ko. But looking over the replay of the pageant, nakitaan ko kung bakit siya ang isa sa mga nanalo. Empress Tin says, model-esque. Yes, I agree. But there is more to that I will be explaining in a bit. Oriental Josa Sahara, sabi niya. Salamat Nana, abot din. Was still listening to your vlog last night. Yeah, I kind of was surprised that there are still some people who are interested to have a live stream this evening, considering that we already had a live stream last night and we've discussed, quite a lot of things with regards to the Miss Supranational results. So, in order naman, para hindi naman tayo mukhang repetitive ng content natin last evening, I am now gonna discuss with you guys yung mga napansin natin na mga commonalities that make up the prototype of a supranational, whether it's Mr. or Miss Supranational na winner. Okay, where are we? Okay, sige. Let's just finish the first set of comments and then we'll dive right into the discussion. Okay. Nasaan na ba tayo? Yes, Windy City, sabi ni EF Chicago, Land of Lincoln. And AJ Baay says, do you think, Sir Jason, it will be much better if Johannes removed his porn stash? Yeah, I kinda agree na he looks much better, more European yung kanyang look, because he's half German if I'm not mistaken. If tinanggal niya yung kanyang mustache, kasi masyado na siyang maduming tignan with all the tattoos and with the very unsightly na facial hair. Although if it was a full-on mustache and beard, I think mas siguro mas swak yun dun sa hinahanap ng Mr. Supranational. Empress Teen says Team Latin and Team Europe ang winners, and mapapansin nyo later on when we discuss yung mga winners ng Mr. Supra na it's very Latino-centric yung tawag ito, yung mga nanalo so far sa Mr. Supranational. And I mean from 2016 up until now, I think karamihan ng mga winners are within the American continent, both North and South America and Latin America. Where are we? Ashden, sabi niya, si Mr. Poland, may yabang factor siya. I don't know kung yun lang ang pinaproject niya. Spain and Netherlands were my favorites. And speaking of the Europeans, I think aside from Poland, Ashden, siguro magandang napansin din sana natin si Mr. Italy because apparently may itsura din si Mr. Italy. Okay, so let's may comment ulit si Ashden. Sabi niya, hehehe, madaming tignan, natumpok po nyo ang dating ng rep natin. Mas gwapo siya nung kumakanta nung MUPH Not Cause. Okay, so, mamaya na natin i-expand yung conversation natin on Mr. Supra because before we jump into the Mr. Supra, I want to discuss first some of the commonalities that I've noticed with the winners, and umpisahan natin. Let's start off with the conversation with the Miss Supranational winner. So by now we're quite accepting na of the fact that Andrea Aguilar of Ecuador is the new Miss Supranational. I believe that this time around, let's try to break down what are the things that made her win in terms of the prototype that the organization or perhaps even the judges were taught to look for by the organization. Because if we're looking historically at Miss Supranational, the Miss Supranational start off as a pageant that is more on showcasing your pasarela, your catwalk skills. It is in fact, a common knowledge that majority of the perception ng mga people, ng mga pageant fans is that this is more like of a showcase, a Victoria's Secret showcase rather than a pageant during its first 5 years, during its first, during its initial years, prior to the competition making major changes around the time where Valeria Vasquez won Miss Supranational. Now, let us explain first. Historically, if we're going to look at the Miss Supranational pageant, karamihan ng mga segments nila is just pasarela segments with different outfits, different gowns, different swimsuits, and whatnot. This started to change around the year of when I believe Asha Bat and around 2014 and 2016, where they started looking for the more traditional Miss na winners, traditional pageant winners. And during that time, I think that there were some experimentation that happened in terms of the formula of what they're looking for in a winner. Initially, I believe that during the time of the first 5 years, that includes our own mutya ng mutya Datol, mutya Johanna, mutya Johanna Datol. Tama ba? I'm sorry, I forgot if it's Johanna or Johanna Datol. So anyway, Mutya Datol and her predecessors were more of like a showcase of pasarela skills. I think that was, that was why in our minds back then, cemented na yung perception na if we're going to send someone at Supra, we should be sending someone who is tall, someone who is, very, what do you call this, very, very aggressive or very impactful on stage. We need to be sending someone that has very strong stage presence and someone who has, really strong command of, her pasarela skills, yung technically proficient when it comes to presentation. Okay, so with that, with that in mind, if we're looking at the first 5 winners of Miss Supranational, a lot of them are within the range of 5'8" and above. So the first winner is, sandali lang let me just pull up my notes. The first winner, Oksana Moria of Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken, is 5'9.5". Sinundan siya ni Panama, Karina Pinilla at 5'9", Monica Liu Suk at 5'9.5". Yung nag-crown kay Mutya is also 5'9.5", and Mutya is at 5'8". In that first 5 years, makikita natin that the height that they are looking at is someone within the range of the 5'8" to 5'9". During the years after Mutya, when kinoronahan si Ashabat of India, Stefania Stegman of Paraguay, Srinidhi Shetty again of India, and Jenny Kim of Korea, those were the years that nagkaroon ng shift in terms of what they're looking for in a winner. Those were the years that I believe that they were experimenting, taking in their formulas on what are they gonna be looking for in a winner. That is why during those years we have Ashabat at 5'7.5", Stefania Stegman at 5'9.5", Srinidhi Shetty at 5'8", and Jenny Kim at around 5'4", 5'5". So those were the years that we definitely saw a sort of like experimentation in the way that they are balancing the criteria of judging, or the criterias of what they're looking for in a winner, and it's quite evident with the very wide na selection of winners during that time. However, by the time that Valeria Vasquez won, doon na yung sunod-sunod na bumalik ulit yung height is might na look or na hinahanap on the Miss Supranational winner, because since Valeria Vasquez was crowned in several years back, around 5 years back, the heights has always been consistent na 5'8" and above yung hinahanap. So you have Antonia Porcel, you have Shanique Rabe, you have Valeria Vasquez, who are 5'9" and above. 5'9" si Antonia at saka Shanique, tapos si Valeria is around 5'10". And then you have Lalela, who is around 5'8". There are sources though that has like contradicting na mga what do you call this? Contradicting na mga published heights, where at some point there are websites that would say that she's at 5'7.5", and then there are other websites that would say that she's at 5'9.5". But the most reliable source that I've looked at, she's around 5'8". So let's just and that's the height that was I believe published during the time that she competed at Miss Universe. So we will be keeping that. So with that in mind, having Andrea Aguilar, who is 5'11" in height, hindi nakakapagtaka that when it comes to the physicality of the winners, bumalik tayo doon sa era wherein yung mga winners na hinahanap nila is never shorter than the 5'8". And this is actually for me a much better na pageant, because as compared to MGI, most of MGI winners is 5'9" and above. So kumbaga that medyo mas forgiving kahit konti pa paano ang Miss Supranational in the way that they select their winners. Now, Rocco Moreno, thank you very much for your gift, for your generosity once again. Thank you very much for the gift that keeps on popping on our screen. Salamat. So let me just go back to the discussion bago ako mawala at malito. So anyway, as I was saying, if we're going to factor in the first 5 years and the last 5 years of the pageant, you would see that the average heights of the girls is around 5'9". 5'9.5". But if we're going to factor in yung heights ni na Asha Bat, ni na Stefania Stegman, Shernidi Shetty, at saka ni Jenny Kim, medyo bumaba ng konti yung average heights nila at around 5'7.5" to 5'8". So with that in mind, we might now need to consider that if we're going to be sending a representative to Miss Supranational, we need to be looking at girls that are at least 5'8" in height, because that is, the average winnable height for Miss Supranational. Now, we also need to look at the body structure, at the body proportions of the girls that we send at Miss Supranational, because majority of the winners are actually very svelte and very thin or has model-esque proportions. Imagine, the old Victoria's Secret na angels na look, because that is essentially the things that I've noticed in terms of the physicality, the body proportions of the girls that won Miss Supranational. Let's also take into consideration yung katawan ni Mutya, because I think that even if she's like 5'8" in height, Mutya Datol has that very long leg na proportion that throws off her height, that makes her look like she's actually 5'9" in photos. That is because she has long limbs, and in fashion, having long limbs would make you look taller, and this would make you easier na damitan, because hindi mo kinakailangang mag-adjust masyado in terms of how are you going to dress someone up to make her look taller, because again, apparently with this pageant, height is might, and this is much more evident at the male counterpart later on that we will be discussing. Now, another thing that we need to take a look at is that yung strong pasarela skills ng mga nananalong Miss Supranational. Looking at the first 5 winners and the last 5 winners, you would see that these are the years where all of the girls have one thing in common, and that is strong presentation skills on stage. And this is why I am not surprised that someone like Andrea Aguilera, who has a experience at the Thailand-based na pageant na very pasarela at saka very physical yung hinahanap, I am not surprised to see her win at Miss Supranational. Because ultimately, if this pageant is looking for someone who has strong pasarela skills, who looks good on camera, who has a strong stage presence, plus with height, makikita nila yon with Andrea. And I am not discounting the fact that there needs to be a change in terms of what constitutes as beautiful for this pageant. I agree, kinakailangan mas maging accepting sila sa different na body types, just as Miss Universe has done that in their pageant. However, we cannot dictate that with the pageant owners, because definitely what works for them, what works for the European market, might not necessarily be what works globally. So we have to understand the dynamics of marketability for their pageant, because right now, from my perspective, is that ayaw nila. Okay, sorry, we just had a internet interruption. Now recognizes, I believe, that the currently being monopolized or being dominated by their rival, the Miss Grand International na pageant. And I think Supranational wants to have a slice of the pie in terms of that market. Ayaw nilang pakawalan yung market na yon. And I think crowning a Latina is something that is very smart move for them. And it just so happened that this year, overall, mas malalakas ang mga Latina over the entire Asian or European na contingent. We have to recognize that, because the Latinas are very much aggressive this year. So you have Sankler, you have Valentina, you have Andrea. as possibly, the flag bearers from the very beginning of the competition. And the ultimate results, almost elimination in the among the nurse. Now, in terms naman of um, yung strong na pasarela skills, I don't think that has changed, or that has pretty much vanished over the 14 years, 15 years of the pageant. They started with the pageant in around 2009, looking for girls who essentially are models, Victoria's Secret models, and mula nung 2009 until now, karamihan ng mga girls, majority of the girls that they've crowned, whether it's the first 5 years, the middle years where they started experimenting, and the last 5 years, we would see that there is a consistent, how to say this, there is a consistency in terms of the way that they are always looking for strong girls with strong catwalk skills. So that has not changed. That has essentially been cemented year after year after year of the Miss Supranational pageant. So, ano yung takeaway ng... Okay, again, sorry for the internet disruption, but as I was saying, now I forgot what I was trying to point out. Let's just rewind. If ever that we're going to learn some takeaways, some strong, lessons from this pageant, is that we need to send a physically perfect specimen when we're sending someone in the Miss Supranational na pageant. We need to find someone who ticks all the boxes in terms of height, in terms of presentation skills, in terms of being facially pretty, or at least facially competitive, and at the same time find someone who has model-esque proportions. That is going to be a challenge for us, because for us here in the Philippines, the pageant has moved on to more welcoming, with different girls having different body types, personalities. We're more open about removing height requirements this time around. So I think in terms of the physicality, magkakaroon tayo ng problema, because right now the Philippine pageants has essentially discarded the minimum height requirements. So I think in terms of openness, the Philippines has been more open, more accepting, and more diverse in terms of selecting winners of different body types. But if the Miss Supranational is looking for someone that is really very much towards the Brazilian bombshell supermodels of the 2000s, where they're essentially looking at the Fernanda Alves, the Giselle Bonchen, and all of these supermodels in the early 2000s that include Caroline Trentini and Adriana Lima, and all of the okay, sorry about that again. I apologize for the very unstable internet that we're having. Napuputol tayo madalas. Anyways, as I was saying, we need to be on the lookout essentially for so we need to be very strategic moving forward. Okay, so let's ang sabi niya is ang sabi ni Empress, ang cute ni Miss Vietnam with Obo effect, hehehe. Kinda surprised with Vietnam making top 5 in what do you call this, in Miss Supranational this year. I think I would have swapped that with possibly either Thailand or Peru, but good job for making thus far in the pageant. Alhiero Pexon is here saying, hi Sir Jason, nakaabot din sa pa-live. again, gonna have to say thanks to Rocco Moreno for, for the gift. I'm really touched for the support that you've been giving us and this channel. Rocco Moreno says, "Hi Jason, what's your favorite drink? It's on me, pa-deliver na." Ah, uh, Coffee, a little bit, you know, a little bit on the sweet side. Those are the things that I like. Pero wag muna tayong magpa-deliver. Let's table that for another session na lang muna. Okay? Alhiero Pexon, hi sir, sabi niya, nakaabot din sa pa-live, greeting from UAE. So I think that's around morning pa lang, tama ba? Or afternoon na sa UAE. So hello there sa mga kababayan natin sa magandang gabi. Speaking of standards, naglabas na rin ng standards ang Miss International for the upcoming pageant na pinost ni Adam. Actually, that was tweeted by the Miss International org earlier today or yesterday. Tama ba? I'm not sure kung kasi nabasa ko lang siya around this afternoon. And yes, they did post and in terms of what they're looking for, again, if hindi niyo napapansin, isa sa mga nabanggit doon sa tweet was punctuality. So we really need to be very careful on that. Importante talaga ang attendance sa mga hapon. Okay, continuing dun sa comment ni Lemuel. So yeah, I agree. It is a little bit closer to the Trump era na winners ng Miss Universe yung prototype ng Miss Supranational ngayon. Okay, Gamerholic says Rachel Peters sana maganda ipadala sa Supra. I agree. Because Rachel even if Rachel is actually only around 5'8", she actually looks like she's 5'9" or 5'10", because again, much like Mutya, much like Miriam Kiambao, Rachel has long limbs. She has short torso and long legs. So that is why nakakabudol ang height niya. She looks like she's 5'10", 5'9", because of her body proportions. Okay, looking at the additional comments from Gamerholic, isa sa mga binanggit niya na perfect daw for Supra are Krishna Gravides, Eliza Malinaw, and Gazini Ganados, which I agree wholeheartedly because these are the girls that have, very model-esque na proportions. And this is also the reason why, prior to the announcement of Supra, I was hoping crazy. So I am hoping that this time around hindi na tayo what do you call this, magambala. I just had to reset the router a bit. Okay, so as I was saying, yes, I agree dun sa sinabi ni Gamerholic that Krishna, Eliza, Gazini would be perfect for Supra. Ping says, Sir Jason, ang pinagtataka ko naman sa Miss Supra org, kung lakas sa pasarela at tindig ang type nila, bakit hindi nila pinili si Krishna? That I am not aware of. What are the reasoning or what are essentially the rationale behind the selection of what's the name of Pauline, because we've heard that the favorite was si Pauline nga daw. So that is why hinintay na tanggapin niya, hinintay ng local org na tanggapin niya yung appointment as Miss Supranational Philippines. So we're not sure what's the rationale behind all of that, kung bakit. However, if we're going to look at the results, then it does make sense na kung favorite siya, nakita naman natin na nagbunga yung pagiging favorite niya, ending up as as first runner-up to the eventual winner. So I think that's something that we need to take as as a positive, as a win for us. Okay. Where are we now? Lemuel 23.5 has posted a comment here. Sabi niya, as for the Mr. Supra, I noticed the same face card that's very mature or rugged, adult masculine figure and fit body, physique that takes command on stage. Ito talaga standard nila from the start. I will be talking about that a little bit, Lemuel, because there is something more to what you've commented, ano yung what works for Mr. Super. There is far more into that that what you commented. John Snow 79. Hi Jason. Sa physical aspects ng winners ng Miss Supra, parang si Jenny Kim lang na iba. Even winners from India and Stefania, pasok pa rin sa prototype lineup na hinahanap nila for a winner. I agree. I think Jenny was like the outlier, the major outlier among all the winners of Miss Supranational, because she's the only one that is on the shorter stature. However, they said, rumors had it that the organization liked her personality, her very bubbly. Hindi daw siya mahirap katrabaho. So I think that probably factored into why she won Miss Supranational during her year. Ayan, Erica Valderrama, happy Sunday from California. Hello, good morning there in the I think West Coast. Sabi niya she's a new subscriber here. Thank you very much. For those who are new in the channel, please gayahin niyo si Erica na nag-subscribe na sa ating channel so that you get more of these very intelligent discussions on pageantry. I can promise to discuss and to talk about in our channel. Okay, thank you for thank you Erica also for subscribing to our channel. Ayan, Ashden is also here. May comment siya, wait lang. I think I scrolled way too fast. Okay, sabi ni Ashden, masama po ba panahon dyan if internet cables are connected aerially, which is typical sa Pilipinas? Pagka masama panahon, marami talaga ang net interruption. Yes, it's actually at this point in time, paalis na yung bagyong Dodong. However, the what do you call this? The typhoon is pulling up the habagat, that causes scattered rain showers all over the country. And right now, panaka-naka yung pag-ambon, pag-ulan. There are some cases na the whole day nang umaambon. And there are some cases in Metro Manila na come rain, come shine, may break in between yung dalawa. Okay, EJ Belge, will we expect Miss Vietnam to be in the top? Okay, there we go. We're back again. I don't think that it will just be a trend that we will see Vietnam, flexing their muscle in pageantry this year. I think that this will be something that we will be seeing throughout the next 2, 3, 5 years. So, they are the apple of the eye this time around. It's no longer, I think, the Philippines that has the monopoly of being the apple of the eye of pageant organizations. I think we're more of like Venezuela nowadays, that we're like a expected na performer in any pageants that we compete in. So John Snow says here, Rachel Peters and Gazzini, pwede for Supra. I watched Gazzini's interview with MJ. Sabi niya kung di siya nanalo ng MU, Supra ang gusto niyang makuha. Willing din daw siya sumali 3 times kung hindi siya nanalo agad. And I think, if it happened na sa Supra siya pinadala, I think that in 2019, she could have made a dent in the competition at Supra. Same thing with Rachel Peters. However, with Rachel kasi, I think that she was sent in the right pageant at Miss Universe because she was the one that has overall a strong performance in Binibining Pilipinas that year. Sa tingin ko in terms of yung physicality, in terms of speaking ability, in terms of pasarela, Rachel Peters really nailed that head on from Binibining Pilipinas. And it is unfair that i-relegate mo siya sa lesser na pageant if yung kanyang performance merits, the top crown. Ayan. Gamerholic. Steffi would Okay. Steffi would be great in Supra, kaso baka sa height magka-problema. I think there won't be any issue because I think Steffi is around 5'8". Ang magiging issue is, even if they extend the the age, the ceiling age for Supra, ang magiging issue ni Rachel, ni Stephanie is probably yung marital status, because if I'm not mistaken, Miss Supranational does not accept married and mga mothers into their competition. So medyo doon tayo madedehado. Yun sa tingin ko, yung kinakailangan natin na we have to manage our expectations. But honestly, if their age would extend to the age na pwede pang sumali si Steffi, and they would rethink yung kanilang rule on eligibility on single mothers, on mga wedded mothers. I know that would be something that would be perfect for Steffi. Although dream pa rin ng karamihan sa atin na mabigyan siya ng pagkakataon for Miss Universe Philippines. Ping says, si Aya Abisamis ang totga ko for Supranational. I think that's pretty fair. Kasi I think Aya has a strong command on stage. And I think yung kanyang facial features would be something that would be very workable in Miss Supranational. And remember, Prewanich Ruangthong, the first runner-up ni Lalela, I think she has both Prewanich and Aya has the same vibes surrounding them. AJ Baay, yun ang di ko maintindihan sa mga Philippine orgs. Bakit hindi nila ibigay yung gusto or prototype ng pageant na sasalihan nila? Probably, the mga orgs natin, tinitignan din yung eligibility on age. So, kasi may mga, like for example, yung sa Supra and yung sa Charm, hanggang 26 lang yata yung ina-accept ng Charm. So, hindi pwedeng ipasok si Pauline doon because she's around 27, if I'm not mistaken. Kaya, doon ipinasok si Krishna. Don Oragon Vlog says, good evening. Magkakaroon din po ba ng Mr. Supranational Philippines this year? Mukhang next year na tayo magkakaroon ng competition ulit. To select yung representative natin for next year's Mr. Supranational na competition. Gamerholic agrees with the comment ni Ping. Sabi niya, if kaya pa sana ng age ni Aya at Serene Suthon. I think Serene has no intention of joining pageants. I think she's very much how do you say this? Fulfilled with her modeling career. So, but who knows, baka magbago isip niya someday soon. Lemon 23.5 is saying, if Krishna, Aliza, and Gazini are no longer available as of now for contention for Supra, sino kaya ang napipisil mo na susunod sa yapak ni Pauline? Right now, let's get through muna yung mga international na competitions na darating before we start thinking of international representation for next year. Ashden, extend po tayo ng live suggestion pamawi sa net interruption. Okay, definitely we will make sure that we will be finishing all the topics that we've listed here. Dahil I want to make sure that this live stream has complete na discussion on the points that I actually wanted to discuss. Let's just finish some of these comments and then we will jump into the Mr. Supranational prototype. Okay? Don Oragon says, good evening. Magkakaroon din po, okay, nabasa ko na pala to. Hajiev says, I think malakas mag-lobby local org sa Vietnam. Observation ko lang. Tapos, potentially, willing to host pa sila ng international pageants. Alam mo, Hajiev, that is a very astute na observation because that is what's happening nowadays. If we are going to look at MGI and Miss Philippines, Miss Earth happening in Vietnam later this year, that's something na the Vietnamese orgs are willing to do in order to leverage yung kanilang mga pambato. And sana kaya din gawin ng Philippine orgs natin yan. Sabi ni Gamerholic, si Miss Peru, akala ko makakakuha ng crown or runner-up, nagulat ako kay Vietnam. Lahat naman siguro tayo nagulat kay Miss Vietnam. But, that's water under the bridge. It's no longer something na we have control on. Sana kung sa voting yan, nakagawa pa tayo ng paraan. But anyway, the results are in. The best thing that we can do is, accept and move on with the results of the Mr. Supranational na pageant. Okay, so now let's talk about Mr. Supranational because among the how many winners have they had? Among the 7 winners, nag-iisa lang actually yung medyo kakaiba yung facial features or rather kakaiba yung kartada ng hulma niya as compared to the 6 winners. And I'm talking about Nate Cernkovich of the US. In fact, sa kanilang 7 na winners ng Mr. Supranational, he's the only one that is very much walang facial hair, blonde, because a lot of the winners for Mr. Supranational are essentially magkakapareho ng kartada ng katawan, ng mukha at ng height. If we're looking at, okay, let's start first with the look. Mr. Supranational has not veered away from the very Eurocentric na male beauty standards. What I mean is that the winners that they have is someone that if you put in Europe, he would not get lost in terms of what they find as appealing or what they find as good looking, whether it's Pratamesh of India or Nate of the US or of course Gabriel and Diego ng Venezuela and Mexico. Hindi naiiba yung kanilang overall look with the more European and Caucasian na itsura or Caucasian na definition of what is good looking. That is something that is a common thing among all these winners, that if pag pinagtabi-tabi mo sila, you would see they are essentially isang kulma lang pinanggagalingan. If you look at yung kanilang faces, there is only actually one that really stands out among them, and that is India's Pratamesh Maulinkar. And that is simply because he looks Asian. But even if you look at him, yung kanyang overall na presence, yung kanyang face, that is the kind of face that would work on European modeling stints. So I'm not surprised that year in, year out, there is a certain, type of beauty, male beauty, that the organization or that the pageant um, awards as winner. And if you look at yung mga winners natin kadalasan, they all pretty much have facial hair, with the exception of Nate Cernkovich. So mula kay Diego Garci ng Mexico, kay Gabriel Correa ng Venezuela, si Pratamesh ng India, si Nate lang yung walang facial hair. Kasi si Varo Vargas, si Luis Daniel Galvez, at saka si Ivan Alvarez, they all have facial hair. So, and I'm not saying na yung mustache lang na katulad ng kay Johannes Rissler na facial hair. I'm talking mustache and full-on beard. And if ever that they're competing, may stubble pang nakikita kung minsan. So, I think that in terms of yung kanilang overall facial na look, kinakailangan balbasarado yung ipadala natin next year para magkaroon tayo ng tsansa. I think for me, if that is what they're looking at, then Raed and si Marco Poli would have been the kind of guys that would have worked for the pageant. And to a certain extent, I would include in that list si John Adahar. The only problem with that is that all three of them parang less than a month or maximum siguro 2 months na yung time nila to prepare for their international competitions. That is the problem. Kasi looking at John, looking at what's his name, Raed and Marco Poli. Si Raed at saka Marco Poli yung may kinakailangan pang ayusin sa katawan. They still need to bulk up. And cut. So magpalaki ng katawan and then mag-hone in ng muscle. Kasi lahat ng mga nananalo sa Mr. Supranational, they all have abs. They all have very bulky na chest and shoulders. Kita with their swimsuits naman that very cut yung kanilang mga katawan. And I think umasa ako that John Adahar would move past the top 20 because so far there is no Filipino rep in Mr. Supranational that has moved past the top 20 na cut. Hindi pa tayo nakakatikim guys ng top 10 na finish in Mr. Supranational. And for me, I think that the best bets that could have made into the second cut of the competition would have been these three: si John, si Raed, at saka si Marco. However, with the very small, very limited time that we have for preparations, I think that has affected their chances and their overall performance. I think siguro this is something that is needed to be addressed way back when ALV is still is still handling the Mr. Supranational na franchise. So kumbaga sa tingin ko, we had great reps but hindi lang sila nabigyan ng chance to shine because napakaliit yung kanilang preparation. Dahil if we're looking at the prototype ng katawan ng physique ng mga winners ng Mr. Supranational, they have really very bulked up and muscular na bodies. And I think yun yung isa sa mga sa mga weakness natin dahil yung preparation natin on the physical side medyo kinakailangan pa ng oras, kinakailangan pa ng additional na preparation on that aspect. Now, in terms naman of the height, never send someone who's shorter than 6 feet tall. Because if we're looking at the Mr. Supranational winners, there is no winner in their roster that is shorter than 6 feet tall. Because ang pinakapaliit, the shortest Mr. Supranational winners are actually Gabriel Correa and Luis Daniel Galvez, and they stand 6 feet tall. All the rest are around 6'1", 6'4", 6'5". Now, ano yung mga heights ng mga winners ng Mr. Supranational? Let me list them down to you. Diego Garci of Mexico is 6'2". Gabriel Correa of Venezuela is 6 feet tall. Prathamesh Maulinkar of India is 6'3". And isipin nyo na baka fluke lang itong pagkapanalo ni Spain for being 6'5". That's not the case because nagkorona sila ng 6'4". Nate Cernkovich of the US is actually 6'4" in height. Vargas of Peru is 6'1". Luis Daniel Galvez of Cuba is 6 feet tall. And Ivan Alvarez is 6'5". So, height is might in Mr. Supranational. Don't send someone who is like 5'11 or 5'10 in this competition dahil hindi sila mapapansin. And that is a mistake that we've done in the past several edition. Because there are times na nagsisend tayo ng nasa 5'10 lang yung height. Now, looking at the 7, winners of Mr. Supranational, it is safe to say that the average height is around 6'1", 6'2" for this pageant. So we really need to step up yung ating selection process and yung training process. If we can manage to select a candidate a year prior to competing, that would be a very efficient way of strategizing yung oras natin in the selection of Mr. Supranational Philippines. What I do suggest is anyone who has a inclination to participate in Mr. Supranational Philippines in the future, a year ahead pa lang, nagpe-prepare na kayo. Kasi yun yung hinahanap ng pageant eh. They are not looking for someone who's short. They're not looking for someone, someone who's not physically prepared, who's not physically bulked up and muscular. They're looking for someone that is very much a model, a European model at that, because in most cases, ang mga winners ng Mr. Supranational, very modelesque yung height and pati yung facial features. The facial features are not something to scoff at. They are more towards modeling in terms of yung kanilang overall na look. Okay? Now, ano yung takeaway natin dito sa Mr. Supranational at saka sa Miss Supranational? We have to start convincing ourselves that the Q&A is not the end-all and be-all for this pageant. The Miss Supranational pageant started off with a pageant without a final Q&A. That is pretty much more of a modern introduction in the pageant in the last several years. And I think if we look at the communication skills of both the winners in Mr. and Miss Supra this year, hindi kalakihang porsyento yung ability to speak in English for both pageants. So, the Q&A should not be the end-all, be-all of our perception of that is where they're gonna look at who's going to win. We need to be very mindful that there are other criteria of judging, that are other categories where they are going to look at physicality, facial beauty, stage presence, as possible or bigger chunks of scoring as compared to the Q&A na segment. Tayo lang naman yata dito sa Pilipinas yung puts too much of a premium on the Q&A that we tend to forget that this is still, at the end of the day, a beauty pageant. And because it's a beauty pageant, beauty comes first before intelligence. Okay? So, we need to start educating ourselves that the Mr. and Miss Supranational is looking for someone who is physically a perfect specimen, basically. Hindi ito Miss Universe, hindi ito Miss World na kuda is life. nagkamali ho kayo ng ng sinasalihang pageant or sinusuportahang pageant, if you are looking for kudaeras in the Miss Supranational or even the Miss Grand International na pageant. I think we need to manage our expectations. We need to learn what are the preference of these international pageants and react and act accordingly to what they are actually wanting and needing in a winner. So tama na sana yung pinagpipilitan natin na kinakailangan makuda ang manalo dahil she had the best Q&A among the top 5 in the competition. How about yung physicality? How about yung katawan? How about yung stage presence, yung pasarela, yung technical skill on walking? Ibig bang sabihin wala nang points yun? That is something that we really need to to drill into our heads, that for this pageant, that is what they are looking for. So hindi sila ang mag-a-adjust dun sa expectation natin. Tayo yung kinakailangang mag-adjust doon sa requirements nila. Okay? It's their pageant. They pretty much have the authority to dictate what they are gonna look for in a winner. Okay, so let's read some of the emails, some of the chats. Okay, mga comments sa chats. Where are we now? Nasaan na ba tayo sa mga comments? I think nandito tayo sa comment ni EJ. Okay. Sabi ni EJ, how about Isabella Galleria? I am not sure with Isabella's height, but I think in terms of the physicality, may laban si Isabella. In terms of yung body proportions, I'm just not sure with with kung gaano siya katangkad. If she's around 5'8", 5'9", that would be perfect. Kasi yun yung average, yun yung pinaka winnable among the among the Miss Supranational na winners. In fact, let me just double check. Out of the 14 na winners ng Miss Supranational, 9 of them are 5'9" and above in height. So yeah, we need to find someone who's 5'9", because that seems to be the winning height for Miss Supranational. Tofi's World, ayan, tagal ko rin nang hindi nakikita itong si Tofi sa ating comment section sa ating mga pa-live stream. Okay, sabi ni Tofi, nakaabot din ako, Sir Jason. I am happy with Pauline's placement kasi the fact na pinasok siya sa top 12, okay na yon. Kasi kabado ako sa swimsuit performance niya, pero the rest, she just breezed through until the end. I kinda agree. Lahat tayo kinabahan doon sa kanyang swimsuit performance because she looked heavy in that swimsuit. Hindi nakakapayat yung swimsuit na ibinigay sa kanya or isinuot niya. Yung medyo high-waisted na mukhang adult diaper yung kanyang yung bottom portion ng kanyang swimsuit, it only made her look even heavier. So I would have loved something na mas mataas yung cut sa may tawag ito, sa may leg opening, or something na malatanga yung itsura para mas mukhang mahaba pa yung kanyang legs. Gamerholic, yung rep natin nung 2019, good sana, kaso ang lakas lang ni Antonia. I think Antonia was okay. Before anything else, Antonia, I believe, is among the Asians that competed in Miss Supranational from the Philippines or from Thailand. Siya talaga yung kakaiba in terms of her overall na look, because she looks more Eurasian rather than Thai. So if you're gonna look at her, she looks pretty much passable for a Caucasian. And I don't want to say that it has something to do about race, but I would think that because of her, because of her more Eurasian na features, medyo mas Caucasian yung kanyang features as compared to Asian. I think that worked to her advantage, and it made her, much more easy breezy na manalo. Okay? Salvi Salen is here. Sabi niya, good evening, Sir Jess. Nakaabot din. Lemol 235 is here, is still in the comments. Sabi niya, maganda sana kung makapagsimula ang Mr. Pilipinas Worldwide early of the year. Probably around January or better yet around December this year para yung winner ng Supra would have enough time. Hindi yan mangyayari dahil meron pa silang mga candidates na or mga winners na sasali pa lang ngayon. So, medyo suntok sa buwan yung magkaroon ng dalawang edition sa isang year, especially if it's their inaugural year pa naman. Tofi's World, for Mr. Supra dapat mga katipon ni Gerald Anderson. Brownie Pinoy, aloha Jason. I heard that he has ng Pilipinas own Mr. Saan na ba tayo? ALV. So, does this mean that Herlene cannot represent the Philippines? Okay, Brownie Pinoy, I actually discussed, ayan, umuulan na naman dito. Okay, let me just discuss about this because I think I've mentioned this already in the previous live stream yesterday. So, what happens here is that Herlene's title is Miss Tourism Philippines. Therefore, there is a strong possibility that that ALV pageant circle is going to look for a tourism pageant where she can be sent into. Alam naman natin that here in the pageant industry, parang kabuti na nagsulpot ng malala ang mga tourism na pageants. Ang daming permutation ng Miss Tourism na title that at some point there probably was around 5 or 6 Miss Tourism International and World and other iterations that that existed in the past 5-10 years. So I'm sure hindi mahihirapan ang ALV na maghanap ng possible tourism pageant for Herlene. So we just have to wait and see because the Miss Tourism World na sinalihan ni Justin Felizarta apparently is now with Hiyas ng Pilipinas and they have the legal rights to that franchise. Okay. Lemol 235, sabi niya, MJ Ordiliana would be perfect for Mr. Supranational despite lacking the facial hair. But MJ exudes maturity and masculine appeal that Supra is looking for. Dagdag mo speaking skills and intense physique. The question is, may inclination pa ba si MJ na sumali ng pageant considering na national title holder na siya, plus he's already a working actor and commercial model. So maybe he is on the side where he's starting to focus on career rather than pageants. Romnick Parinas, hi Sir Jason, baka naman pwede na lang i-pull out si Mr. World Philippines at siya na lang ipadala sa next edition. That would be great, but I don't think that magkakaroon ng easy transition between ALV and the Mercator side na nagmamanage nung supranational na franchise. So mahirap na mahirap na tawag ito na negosasyon yan. For sure kapag manalo siya, definitely magtatalo yung dalawang local org kung na kanino yung kontrata for Kirk. So masakit sa ulo yan pag nagkaroon ng ganyang problema. Dorothy V. Jones says, sayang si Mr. Netherlands I think Johannes gave his best. He was quite charming, excellent modeling skills. It's just probably that Johannes is not the prototype. Jon Snow 79. Why do you think Brazil can't win Mr. Supra? 5 times na silang nakapasok sa top 5. Twice na sila nag-first runner-up. Usually sa international pageants, may Brazilian winner. Gusto ba nila maiba? Maybe it's just the right timing. Siguro, especially with this, with this case na lahat tayo parang we were hoping na Brazil yung manalo, but strong din kasi yung competition niya with Spain, and if it was my decision, I would have rather given it to Brazil, but hindi yun yung gusto ng mga judges. So anyway, I think it was the chance that Brazil is going to win Mr. Supra. It's just a matter of time that they will land the title. Hindi if but when. I think eventually makakakita tayo ng Brazilian winner sa Mr. and Miss Supra. EJ Belge, finding a 6-footer for Mr. Supra is a rather difficult criteria considering the dearth of candidates meeting the requirement. 5'10 na mga okay. 5'10 na nga lang is a challenge. Baka mga basketball players siguro or mga halfy na models. Really need to scout mga model types to be sent in Mr. Supra. Toughest World, I agree with the physicality. Now that madami na standalone pageant, baka pwede na natin ma-achieve yon. Or pwede naman maraming crown, pero prototype is prototype pa din. Romnick Parinas, Glamazon talaga hinahanap. Krishna Gravides would have been perfect. I agree, Romnick. Rodvin Fiel is here saying he's present. Hello, and medyo malapit na tayo sa tail end ng live stream natin, Rodvin. Dorothy V. Jones says Kat Liegado has the body and the looks for Supra. I kinda agree. But ang height yata ni Kat is around 5'9", 5'8". So or around 5'7". I'm not sure. Kasi Gamerholic si CJ I think is around 5'7". So medyo malayo doon sa requisite na 5'9". But who knows? Maybe in the future, pag makita nila yung paano mag-perform si CJ on stage, that might, change their minds on crowning a performer, but a little bit on the shorter side. Ashden, sabi ni Ashden, back to Mr. Supra prototype, kung face ang usapan, I think pasok yung ex ni Kathleen Payton. But I don't know kung ano ang height niya. If Ashden, kung iniisip mo si Kirk, Kirk is around 6'3", 6'2". So pasok. Pasok na pasok. Lemwall 25, MJ has mentioned it before that he is inclined to join pageants. In fact, he is championing for male pageants here in the Philippines. Right timing lang na hinihintay ni MJ bago bumalik. If he's not tired, he's not yet giving up on pageants, then laban lang. I think naman MJ has already created, a name for himself as Mr. International Philippines. Kung willing siyang sumabak ulit, whether it's Mr. World or other pageants, then go for it. Gamerholic, going back dun sa comment ni Gamerholic about CJ Opiaza, yes, I agree. She's very fit. If we're going to look at the performer na aspect of the Miss Supranational na pageants, I am not just sure with the height. Again, we really need to be very conscious doon sa hinahanap ng Supra if we really want to nail this, this pageant and earn our second crown. Nasaan na ba tayo? Brownie Pinoy, we have several other ladies who could join MUPH, including Miss Tarlac, Miss Antique from MGPH, Kathleen Paton, and Stacy Gabriel. Definitely si Stacy, I think she has intention of joining MUPH. Rodwin Fiel, balik tayo kay Rodwin Fiel. Sabi niya, Sir Emmanuel Vera, rampadora, amiable, although petite, kayang manlamon ng Latina, di ba? Especially, mas mataas na yung age limit ng Supra. But then again, gugustuhin pa ba niyang sumali ulit? Kasi, ano na I think she really was gunning for Supra in tawag ito, in this year's competition. So, sayang na hindi siya napagbigyan. Gamerholic, Celeste na lang ulit. Ha 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 ha. Why not? Pwede nating ipadala si Celeste kasi kung rampa-rampa lang naman at hindi naman masyado sila concerned, hindi naman masyado mabigat yung Q&A na portion, then why not? Celeste would definitely, tick the boxes, kumbaga. Ash then says, kasi tall, pero kailangan lang magpabulk ng mga balbas, yung rugged type, di mukhang swabe po. Okay, so, what is the overall takeaway that we need to understand with the Mr. Supranational and the Miss Supranational pageant? And it's simply this. We need to find someone that is physically aligned with what the pageant is looking for. Keme na dyan sa Q&A. I don't think that the Q&A really has a huge weight in selecting the winner. I think for show lang yung Q&A. Kung meron man siyang points, it might just be as little as around 30% of the overall na scoring. Probably the bulk of that 70% that they're looking for in a winner would be on face, would be on height and body, would be on performance, stage performance, overall performance. So we need to start looking at the Mr. and Miss Supranational as a modeling pageant that just has a speaking segment on it. So that way we are able to manage our expectations in terms of the results later on, because we don't want another scenario where mag-aalbuguto yung sangkabekihan ng Pilipinas because they think that Pauline had a better Q&A versus the eventual winner na si Andrea Aguilera. That's not what the pageant apparently is looking for. So, matauhan na tayo kung ano yung hinahanap nila. If they're looking for a perfect specimen for their title, then that's something that we should be looking for in our local pageant organizations, and that's what we send to Mr. and Miss Supranational. So, in that sense, we are looking for what they are looking for in a winner. Kasi mas malaki ang chances natin na manalo if we're sending them yung prototype na hinahanap nila. And this is also the reason why I believe that the Latinos are having a field day in the Mr. Supranational, because huling-huli nila yung kartada at hulma ng hinahanap ng Mr. Supranational. And this is also the reason why, Odalesque girls, majority of the winners of the Miss Supranational na tawag ito, na title, are within the realm of the more physically modelesque type na mga babae, na mga winners. So, maybe it's about time that we start looking at, looking at what the organization is looking for rather than ipagpilitan natin yung gusto natin doon sa dapat ipanalo ng org. It doesn't work that way. They will crown who they want to crown based on what they are looking for, and therefore it is up to us, the local organization, to adjust, and for the local fandom to adjust our expectations in return. Okay, now let's do some final comments, and after that we'll wrap this up. Okay, sabi ni Lemuel, okay, no. Si Lingual pala. Sabi niya is Maureen Montaigne nagpahiwatig na magbabalik sa pageantry parang sa Miss Philippines ito. If willing siya na magsugal ulit para para makapag-compete internationally, then the choice is up to her. Sabi ni Josh Moore, Chantal for Miss Supra, which I agree very much, and Kirk Bondad for Mr. Problem is, kung hindi pa tapos yung kanyang kontrata with Mr. World Philippines under ALV, then magkakaproblema tayo. Pero kung wala na siyang kontrata, tapos na yung kanyang kontrata, then he's free to, to compete and participate all over again. That is if gusto niyang makipag-compete pa ulit at the local level. Kung appointment siguro yan, walang problema. Okay, Gamerholic says, Chantal, Celeste, Aya, Krishna, and Gazini na malabo na sumali ulit. I think those are good choices. Alfredo Lopez is here. Hello, Alfredo. Sabi niya, Sir Jason, last question. Marami po tayong male models at mas gym fit sa mga past reps natin sa Mr. Supra. Ano ba ang problema? Bakit hindi sila nagjo-join? Malakas ba talaga ang favoritism sa male than female? Hindi ko masasagot yan dahil baka malibelo tayo. But definitely, there is more fixing na pwedeng maganap sa male pageants as compared sa female pageants. And also, another thing about this is that maliit ang cash prizes sa male pageants. If you're going to compare yung cash prize ng Supra sa female nila versus sa male nila, I think mas maliit ng dihamak yung sa Mr. I believe there was a candidate or there was a former winner who, essentially spluk this in one of his live streams. Hindi ako sure if it was Varo, pero yun na nga, parang one of them, nabanggit na mas maliit nga yung cash prize ng Mr. sa Miss. And if that is the case in the international pageant, it is likely that that's also the case at the local level, na mas maliit talaga yung cash prize, yung mga prize winnings ng ng mga misters na pageant dito, ng mga male pageant dito as compared sa mga female pageants. Because earlier this past week, I mentioned na nag-increase na to 500,000 yung management contract ng mga binibining Pilipinas winners. And unfortunately, hindi tayo makakita ng mga ng mga male pageants na nagpa-publish na nasa ganung rate yung kanilang mga papremyo sa kanilang mga winners. So, at the most, siguro baka nasa 50,000 lang siguro yung mga cash prizes nila. I don't think na aabot ng 100, 200, or even a quarter of a million yung kanilang mga cash winnings. So medyo malaki pa yung kinakailangang habulin ng male pageants in terms of yung cash prizes. So that's probably one of the reasons why some of the yung mga gym buff na mga candidates, mga gym buff na sumasali sa mga bikini contest, mas prefer nila yung bikini contest because after the competition, wala na silang poproblemahin. That night or within that same week, after the finals, kuha na nila yung kanilang cash winnings, pwede na ulit silang sumali sa ibang mga bikini contest. Kaya kung makikita nyo yung mga sumasali sa mga bikini contest na panlalaki, kadalasan sa kanila umuulit na lang dahil syempre ang habol is yung cash prize, not necessarily yung title na katulad nito that they will serve the organization for a full year. So that is something maybe that we should be looking into as possible reasons why ang male pageants hindi masyado lucrative kasi hindi competitive yung prize winnings. Brownie Pinoy, could Pauline have been able to compete at Miss Charms? No. Kasi apparently her age would not allow her to compete dahil 26 lang yung allowed na age ng tawag nito na age limit ng Miss Charm. And kung next year pa siya magko-compete, mas lalong mahihirapan na na tumugma yung kanyang age doon sa age requirements ng Miss Charm. Sabi ni Jon Snow 79, continuation lang. Brazil for Mr. Supra is like PH for MGI. Always a bridesmaid, never the bride. Josh Moore, sabi niya, Aya Besanis, very Filipina beauty. Pasok ang age. And Ford model siya. Stunning body proportions. Okay, here we go. Last two comments from Rocco Moreno. Sir Jason, in fair... Ay, wait lang. Jason, off the topic na question. Paano na-resolve ang issue ng Miss Intercon sa Binibining Pilipinas at nalipat sa Mutya? I have no concrete na concrete na news on that. Very tight-lip ang Binibining Pilipinas, but I think nagpaubaya na lang ang Binibining Pilipinas with that case kasi mas gusto nilang patinayan ngayon that they are still the most prestigious na title na national pageant rather than chasing a franchise na na kahit mawala o nandyan sa Binibining Pilipinas, it would not make any added value to the prestige of the pageant. So perhaps that's the reason why wala na tayong narinig kasi baka nga naman na naisip ng Binibining Pilipinas na hindi sila kawalan, so wag na natin habulin. Toffee's World says, Sir Jason, in fair, ang ganda ng production ng Mr. Mas lively pa siya at mas highlighted ang mga candidates sa Mr. as compared sa Miss Supranational. I agree. Yung Miss Supranational, medyo na-bore ako sa dami ng kanta. But dun sa Mr. International, medyo fun lang siya. Medyo, it looks like it was mindless fun for the candidates. And alam niyo yung swimsuit na round ng mga candidates during the initial parts of the competition, it kind of reminded me of the 90s na Miss International, the very dated na pageant format ng Miss International dahil you would see the candidates dance in their swimwear. So it kind of reminded me of that. I'm kind of like thinking na, oh my God, parang kinopya nila itong dancing in the swims segment sa 90s na Miss International. And I remember, Alma Concepcion teaching her co-candidates how to dance during their segment sa swimwear competition dahil at least si Alma marunong gumalaw, marunong sumayaw, and that kind of reminded me of yung mga pinagagagawa ng mga candidates ng Mr. Supranational na parang bali-baliwan lang na nagsayaw on stage. Although may mga nag-effort talaga na nagsayaw na may good body coordination, pero karamihan sa kanila parang sapilitan lang na nagsayaw kahit malatuod silang gumalaw. So it was fun. It was something na hindi mo na kinakailangan pag-isipan pero na-enjoy mo. Ayun. Where are we? Okay, Lemuel 23.5, should male pageants start increasing their prices para mas maraming Naman, I mean, Lemuel, hindi na kinakailangan pag-isipan yan. Kung ikaw ba naman, male pageant, magpa-premyo ka ng kalahating milyon, sinong hindi sasali sa'yo, di ba? Hindi na yan kinakailangang itanong pa, Lemuel. I think if pageants here in the Philippines really wants to like level up, increase nila yung price packages nila for their winner. Josh Moore is saying here, comment niya dito, hoping Mr. Supra will wear bikini trunks rather than the shorts in the swimsuit competition. Hindi ko lang ma-imagine, Josh Moore, kung paano balog-galog yung mga... Okay, so we're back. Okay, ano tayo, seryosohin natin yung question ni ano, yung comment ni Josh. If they're gonna wear bikinis, I don't think that would look good on stage, if especially if they're dancing. It will look like they're, you know, uh, just imagine, you know, their junk, how it's going to move on stage with these bikinis. It would not look good on camera. And definitely stricter yung tawag ito, stricter yung what do you call this? Yung MTRCB equivalent nila in Europe as compared to here in Asia, or in the different parts here of the world. So it wouldn't look good. It wouldn't get approved. And this is also the reason perhaps why for the longest, you know, part, Mr. Supranational would always dress their candidates in board shorts. Okay, final comment from Alfredo Lopez. With regards to Kirk Bondad, sir, sure na po ba na magkukupit sila ni Gwen this year? I think almost 2 years na silang tenga. Ang pwede na yata ma-void contract nila. Hehehe. That I am not sure, but Gwen is going to be competing in India this year. I think it's around November or December of this year. So yun, tuloy na. I haven't heard about anything on Mr. World kung isasabay nila yun sa India later this year. But I do hope na we get answers soon. Right now, I think lahat tayo naghihintay ng move from the Miss World organization if they have any plans of continuing the Mr. World na tawag ito na competition. So let's wait and see. Let's see if they have plans at all, you know, to continue the pageant. So that's it. Yun lang naman yung hinihintay natin. Sila ang gumalaw, yung mismong international na organization ang gumalaw. If totoo yung mga chismis na tawag ito na may issue sila sa pera, baka naman ganun talaga kahirap mag-recover after the pandemic. Because we have to remember, Miss World is more of a charity rather than a for-profit na competition. So maghihintay tayo ng kung ano yung magiging next move nila, because definitely 2 years na postpone, baka dumating ang point na magkaroon ng once na magkaroon sila ng Mr. World, baka yung mga crowned na representatives sila na mismo yung umayaw. Okay? Sabi ni Alfredo Lopez, salamat po Sir Jason for this session and happy Sunday to you and all. Ayan, thank you very much for everyone who's participated in our live stream. Thank you for your patience, especially ngayong umuulan ngayon at yung ating internet paputol-putol. I think this is something na we're all too familiar here in the Philippines, and I do hope that, you know, our government and our private sector would be able to improve their services in terms of yung infrastructure, especially on the internet. Ayan, thank you very much to all that have, you know, nasumubaybay sa ating live stream ngayon. Salamat sa suporta. Thank you for, you know, leaving thumbs up dun sa ating pa-live stream ngayon, for the generosity that you've given us in this live stream. I do hope that the people who joined us in this live stream session na hindi pa nakapag-subscribe, please do subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell para updated kayo sa mga ganaps natin dito sa Sashes&Scripts na community dito sa YouTube. By the way, before we end our live stream, I was actually invited in the Mr. International Philippines na press conference with the 11 winners. I do hope na kompleto yung 11 winners na meet natin on Tuesday. I already RSVP'd to the said event. This is going to be by invitation only na event. So I am very glad that I am among the, I think, less than 50 people, media people, or tama ba? 50 ba? Or less than pa nga yata eh. Parang nasa 30 something lang yata kami na invited na media. So I am, okay. I am looking forward to what's going to happen on tawag nito, on Tuesday. So if allowed kami na allowed kami na mag live stream, we will definitely try to do a live stream, or if not, we will try as much as possible to get enough video content, have interviews with the winners and the owners. I am definitely going to be very excited and to ask yung question ko about the Mr. Charm International that is also owned by the MIPH na organization, and what are their plans for their inaugural year next 2024, this coming 2024. So ayun, marami tayong magiging updates later on. So I do hope na whatever video in video essay or video features that we will be posting here on YouTube, panoorin nyo naman po at suportahan yung ating mga male pageant winners. Okay? Thank you very much for everyone na sumubaybay dun sa ating live stream ngayon. Salamat, and I do hope that I will see you again soon in our next live stream. Ayan, have a great evening sa mga nandito sa Pilipinas, and to the rest of the world, have a nice day. And good luck sa ating lahat sa darating na weekend ahead. I do hope na we're going to be enjoying our weekday ahead, and enjoy our work before we have another fun and relaxing na weekend, and umulit tayo ng ating live stream next Saturday. Okay? That's it. Thank you very much for everyone, and hope to see you again in our next live stream. Bye everyone, and take care.